Fellow Kenyans, welcome once again to this session of the Kenyan School of Revolution. Today, we are going to discuss something completely different. You have seen the confusion that is in our country following the mysterious handshake between Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta. This handshake has brought a lot of confusion in our country. And at this point in time, it is almost impossible to explain it away without going a notch further in terms of political analysis. But before we can do that, it is important that we go back to school. Going back to school not in the literal sense, not in the classroom kind of, sense, not, this is no university lecture, or it is, not an ordinary classroom, but rather it is a YouTube classroom. That is, it is important for we as Kenyans to understand certain basics, because the politicians are not explaining this crisis, the commentators are not explaining this crisis, the reporters are not explaining this crisis. Everybody is generalizing this crisis. But in order to understand it, there are certain things that we also have to appreciate and we also have to understand. So if you went to school, if you can read and write, you don't need to be a graduate or anything, or you don't need to be like some higher education guy or girl to understand what I'm going to teach you. But it has become necessary. The purpose of this lesson, the purpose of today's lesson, is to give you as a Kenyan a new identity, a new political identity that we will be referring to all the time. Because within the socialist camp, you are not just a Kenyan. So at the end of this lesson, you should be able to identify whom you are politically. That is the purpose of this lesson. Now, when you look at Kenya, Kenya is divided into different classes because the Kenyan government or the Kenyan society is built around an ideology called capitalism, which probably many of you must be aware of. It is nothing new, or even these characterizations I'm going to get into. They are nothing new, they are there. It's only that now we are going to use them for political analysis, and it would be very important to be able to put them into context. The Kenyan society is divided into different classes, and these classes, they play different roles, and these roles determines the outcome of politics. We are where we are today because certain players have already played their role, and we find ourselves in this confusion which nobody seems to be explaining. So the first point is to underline the different classes that are at play in Kenya, and to enable you as the viewer to identify, yourself within this system. That is the purpose of this video. It would be important for you to know this. Not every Kenyan is on video, but through political education, you can educate others. If you find that whatever we are trying to explain here at the School of Kenya Red Alliance is relevant and important in the current setup, we will have to be more informed than we are at the moment to be able to solve the Kenyan crisis. So In dividing the Kenyan society, the following are the different class characterizations that actually guide our society. Now, your first identity is that you are an African, because Kenya is in Africa. So when you are outside the continent, you are basically seen as an African. Secondly, you are a Kenyan. This is your second identity, especially when you are outside the country. But when you are inside the continent, then being Kenyan is actually your first identity. Your third identity is that you are your tribe. You are a Luo, like me. You are a Kikuyu, like Uhuru Kenyatta. You are a Kalenjin. You are a Mujikenda. You are a Luya. You are a Kamba. You are a Teso, Giriama. Whatever it is, that is your third identity, apart from being African, and apart from being Kenyan, and apart from being your tribe. So, the fourth identity that we are going to discuss is now your political identity. It is there, but then we take it for granted. It is not like something new. It is something that has been with us. It's only now that we are going to incorporate it into political analysis, because we always leave it behind. What is troubling Kenya today is that much of the politics being discussed is being discussed at the ethnic, tribal level, your third identity. So we want to move to the fourth identity and discuss politics within that framework. We might not go into so many discussions for now, because this video might be too long. So just to get straight to the point, you are a Kenyan, you are an African, you are your tribe, but then when we look at the Kenyan society and we draw a baseline here, you will find that in as much as you are a Kenyan, and in as much as you are a Luo, in as much as you are a Kikuyu, in as much as you are a Luya, you are also either a peasant in Kenya, mkulima. Why is mkulima down here? Because majority of Kenyans live in the rural areas. 75% of Kenyans live in the rural areas. And this forms the bulk of the Kenyan population, who never even participates in politics. So, if you are not a peasant, if you are not within the peasant club, then the next lump sum here, and this is extremely general, there is nothing academic about this. This is just to identify you, to learn whom you are first, before you even discuss hiyo siasa na hiyo solution munatafuta ya tribalism. This is the route to understanding it. Either you know it, you try to understand it, or you already know it. So I'm just repeating things here. Now, if we just come to this second, floor, here is where you get those whom we call lumpens. The lumpens. Now, if you're a lumpen, sasa, lumpen ni mtu sasa, is just there, does not have work, to do, he has nothing to do really. Maybe he went to school, looked for a job, sasa amekaa pale. Lumpens are almost semi-illiterate. We cannot, they are ni kama, makanga who never went to school. Unajua kuna makanga pia wamesoma, they have gone to school and so forth. But lumpen is basically somebody who cannot understand a lot of stuff. They have to, follow people blindly. Their understanding is very limited, because their education is also very low. I mean, wanaweza soma, they can read and write, maybe they never even went to school and so forth. So you find them here, the lumpen. Then, after this, we have people called, baada ya malumpen hapa, ndio sasa tuko na unemployed Kenyans. Unemployed, hawana kazi. So you are either a peasant, you are either a lumpen, ama you belong to the unemployed. And remember, there are some unemployed here, but the difference between the lumpens and the unemployed is that you find that majority of those who are unemployed are, you know, very educated. They could have gone to university, but they are still unemployed. They could have gone to some college, you know, they are unemployed. But if you give them work today of accounts, they will do it. If you give them kazi ya, you know, kutengeneza computer, atakuja atakusurprise with the way they can make computers and so forth. Something that a lumpen might not be able to do, because a lumpen is mostly unskilled. So although they share the element of being unemployed, they are still different in the sense that, you know, some unemployed person might be educated or uneducated, but all of them are unemployed. You get the point? Yeah. Then when we come from these guys, the unemployed, hapo ndio sasa tunaingia kwa the other step hapa juu. Na hapa ndio tunapata watu wanajiita ma students. Students is self-explanatory. These guys are still in school. You know, they are studying to be something. They are studying, you know, for a job. And majority of them, at the moment with the level of unemployment, they normally end up being unemployed. You know, so as long as you are in school, you are still a student. But when you graduate from university and you don't have a job, then you immediately fall here. And sometimes those who fall here, because of time, they even forget about what they studied in school. They start behaving like these guys who never even went to school, the lumpens. Of course, the peasants, they are very educated peasants. So the fact that somebody is a peasant doesn't undermine them. In fact, some peasants are well off, they are rich, they have their cars, they have big houses. So being here doesn't mean that they are low. This is just the various classes, you know. A student can decide to become a peasant. You know, unaenda unapata shamba mahali, unaanza kulima, you depend on the, you know, you feed the nation. So you can decide to be from lumpen to peasant, you can do that. A peasant can decide to become a student, asome something, and so forth. So there is nothing fixed in this particular list. So when we get on top of the student, kipanda juu kidogo hapa ndio sasa we get another Kenyan. This is 1 2 3 4, the fourth Kenyan, ambao anajiita proletariat. Sasa huyu proletariat, yeye ni this Kenyan who is, you know, he has a job, you know, but it is not a good job. It's some factory job, kazi ya mkono. At least anaenda every day, anafanya kazi, gets money, you know, lives from hand to mouth. You know, he's not a student because asomi, and he's not unemployed because ako na kazi, anaenda kila siku. You know, the only thing is pesa yake ni kidogo sana. He lives from hand to mouth, maybe 300-400 Kenya shillings per day. Ni mtu anajenga nyumba mahali, ni mtu anafanya hapo kwa Coca-Cola, you know, Coca-Cola factory, you know, they produce in the industry. You know, this is another class ya wa Kenya after the students. Then tukitoka sasa kwa these guys, ndio sasa tunaingia kwa class nyingine. Tunaingia kwa class mpya hapa ambao tunawaita workers. Workers, wafanyikazi. These are ordinary workers, you know, civil servants. You know, they go to work every day. They are different from the proletariat, because the proletariat ni more of like mkono, sometimes unskilled, you know, labor. But here you find a lot of skilled workforce. Unapata hapa ndio kuna madaktari, there are teachers here, there are doctors. They are employed by somebody. They work in the bank, you know. They work in different institutions. They are professionals. They are accountants, you know. So you find that our watu, they have job to do, And the proletariat also has work. So huyu ni worker and huyu ni worker, but within that workforce bado wako tofauti because of either skill ama income. Just like in the next group here of workers, you know, pia ni wa Kenya. The next group hapa on top of the ordinary workers, hapa maybe we can say ordinary workers hapa, you know. So when we get on top of the workers, ordinary workers, ndio unapata watu tunaitanga wanaitanga the middle class. The middle class pia ni workers. But sasa our middle class workers ni madosi kuliko hao. At least the middle class workers, they can afford to buy a car. Anaweza nunua gari aweke kwa barabara, you know. They can afford maybe to buy a plot somewhere without sweat. They can afford to build some house and become a landlord, you know. They can afford to buy, you know, some matatu, put it on the road, and then become another class altogether. And of course, even our ordinary workers can take a loan, buy some plot, build some houses, become mdosi, and you know, even though you continue to work, but now you are owning, you know, wealth producing property, which means you can still graduate from here to here. You know, you can become a middle class person if you, depending on your economic, you know, depending on your economic level. Then when we move from our middle class tukienda hapa juu, the more we go juu, the more wanapunguka. It's like a staircase. Ndio sasa tunapata watu tunawaita petit bourgeois. Petit bourgeois. Petit bourgeois. This is now where the terminology begins to change a bit, because at least are very easy to understand. Now, petit bourgeois is sasa somebody who has some kind of business they are running, you know. They have some shop which they are running, bringing money, or a stream of shops. Wamenunua matatu zao, you know, pia inakimbia kwa barabara, inaleta pesa every day. Or akona some business anafanya, you know, on a daily basis. You know, akona mitumba anauza to some extent. Hiyo ndio sasa mali anapata pesa yake, because he is a worker, yes, lakini sasa is also businessman. Ndio munaitanga business. Ati mimi nafanya business. Business gani you are doing? Because if you are just a worker, you cannot begin to say that you are a businessman. You become a businessman when you buy some means of producing wealth. You buy some, you know, something that you can be able, umenunua kama pikipiki kama 10, sasa umepatia hawa malumpen wanaendesha na wanakuletea pesa kila siku. Then you enter into the club of the petit bourgeois. So far hizi ni classes ngapi? This is number 1, peasants, number 2, number 3 hapa, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8. You are a Kenyan, you are your tribe, but then you must fall into one of these classes, whether you like it or not. Lazima uwe one of these. So when we go up beyond the petit bourgeois hapa, sasa hii nini inaendelea kukua ndogo. Hapa juu ndio sasa tunapata watu wanaitwa the ruling class. Ruling class. Sasa hapa ndio unapata kuna politicians. You know, they stand for elections, they go to parliament, they represent you. That is, when I represent all these guys down here, because you have elected them. So members of the ruling class, they are not workers, you know. They are the people's representatives, but they earn a lot of salary. You know that. I don't need to go into that. So this is their class. They are number 9 hapa. Alafu tukiingia kwa number 10, you know, number 10, very few. Ndio sasa tunapata watu wanaitwa bourgeoisie. Bourgeoisie. Sasa hawa bourgeoisie ndio sasa madosi. Madosi yani ile ya kupindukia. They have money. They are millionaires or they are billionaires. They are the ones who are running almost everything in Kenya. You know, it doesn't matter whether we're in Kenya, whether it's an American or whether it's a British, but our majama, they own industries, they own factories, they own plantations, you know, they own big companies, you know, hapo nyumbani. They don't go to work, you know, other people go to work for them. When the proletariat is going to work, when this guy is going to work, he's most likely going to work in a factory that belongs to this guy. Maybe you have a big bakery factory that is supplying, you know, the whole of Kenya, you know, Brookside, Uhuru Kenyatta. Uhuru Kenyatta is both a member of the ruling class and one of the leading bourgeoisie in that country. So this is where he belongs. So this is class number 10. Number 10 hapa. So if we talk in terms of, you know, who are you? You are one of these. That is, this is your political tribe. And if we have to explain what is happening in Kenya, for us in the socialist camp, we explain, you know, issues not just from an ethnic perspective, but most importantly, from a class perspective. These are different classes, you know, that comprises of the Kenyan society. So if we come on top here, number 11 here, hapa ndio sasa tunapata imperialism. Ndio amekaa hapo juu. That's why the West wanajaribu control everybody down here. Now, if you look at this arrangement, you will find that if you just cut it off from the ruling class here, ruling class level here, you know, if you cut it from the ruling class level here, this ruling class are the ones who are trying to, you know, represent everybody down here. These are the people whom, you know, you have to vote for them in one way or another. And the ruling class is always acting in the interest of our watu juu, not those who are down here. So this is something which you need to understand. That Kenya is divided into a class society. So you should be able to tell which class are you. Are you a peasant? Are you a lumpen? Are you a member of the proletariat? Are you a worker? Are you a petty bourgeois? Are you a bourgeoisie? Are you a member of the ruling class? Or do you represent imperialism? If you can identify yourself, then we can move to the next step of explaining what is happening in Kenya. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, let me know at the comments.